Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm drawing my sister's Gacha character and trying out some new art supplies. So my sister Reagan has been involved in quite a few of my videos. She likes to draw, so it's easy for us to do artsy things together. The same thing can be said for my brother Jacob, since he also likes to draw. My sister Ruth has always seemed interested in being included in my videos, but because she doesn't draw, I've never really been able to think of a way that she can be a part of a video. Well, recently she's been really liking writing her own stories and creating her own characters. So I thought maybe I could draw one of her characters. She mostly creates her stories and characters in Gacha Club, so I'll be drawing her Gacha character. So this is the character she wants me to draw. His name is Marion, but he doesn't really like his name, so he goes by Ian. He is 16 years old and has ice powers. According to my sister, he can really easily control his powers. He isn't like Elsa. He was born in Paris and moved to the US when he was 5. So let's start drawing Ian. So I'm starting off by working on my sketch digitally. My plan is to print off my sketch and transfer it to different paper later on. When I suggested to Ruth the idea that I draw her character in one of my videos, she seemed pretty excited and was really curious to see how one of her characters would look in my style. I had no idea what kind of pose I wanted to draw Ian in, so I kind of just started drawing and decided to see where that would lead me. I was kind of just going with the flow. I knew I wanted to draw a bust shot of him, and because he has ice powers, I thought maybe I could bring his hand up and have it shooting out some snowflakes or something. I thought the pose looked a little boring. So I decided to try turning his head to be more towards us instead of being in the same direction as his body. I thought this helped the pose look a little bit more interesting. I wasn't sure what expression to have him make. My sister said he often smirks. So at first I had him doing a kind of open mouth smile kind of smirk. However, she said this looked a bit too energetic and that he's more kind of chill and mellow. So I tried to make him look a little bit more chill and not so hyper. After my rough sketch, I do the cleanup sketch. As I was drawing this, I wasn't sure if I should have him have 2 sets of ears or 1 set of ears. In Gacha Club, they don't let you get rid of the human ears, so characters always have 2 sets of ears if you give them animal ears as well. When I questioned Ruth about this, she said if she could give him only the animal ears, he would have only the animal ears. So I drew his hair in a way that would cover up the areas where he has no human ears and drew only the animal ears. Also, Ruth says he is part wolf in case you are wondering. Also, it's kind of weird calling my sister Ruth. I always call her Rue, so I might just call her Rue from now on. So after finishing the sketch, I printed it off and transferred it to my paper using my light pad and color pencils. However, before we start working on the piece, I want to take a look at some new art supplies that Magicfly sent to me. They are sponsoring this video, but all thoughts and opinions are my own. Magicfly sent me 2 of their products, the first being this 48 watercolor set. Here is all of the info on the back of the box. According to it, these have an amazing transparent effect, are richly pigmented, premium quality, and non-toxic. Also, here's a list of the colors. Inside the box, we have this metal paint palette, and when we open it, we find these swatch cards on white and black paper. I really love when art supplies come with swatch charts. It makes the swatching process so much faster. So here are all of the paints. They are individually wrapped. When unwrapped, this is what they look like. So I take a few minutes off camera to unwrap all of the paints, and here they are now. Also, you get metallic and neon paints as well. I'm excited to try these out. But not only do we get paint, there are other items in the box as well. We get this 5x7 10-sheet pad of watercolor paper. The paper is nice and thick and has a very interesting dimple texture to it. It kinda reminds me of a golf ball in a way. I've never seen paper with this texture before. Before opening this set, I didn't know that it came with paper. If I had known that, I would have maybe used it for my illustration of Ian, but I had already transferred my sketch to my paper and I didn't want to transfer it again. Plus this paper is pretty small and I wanted to work at a larger size. Anyways, there's also more in the box. We get this sponge and we also get this 3-pack of water brush pens. I love water brush pens, so I was excited to see that they were included with the paints. For the brushes, there are 2 pointed tip ones. One is a bit smaller than the other. And we also get a square tip brush. So back to the paints. I did swatch all of them, but I won't make you watch the entire swatching process. But I will quickly share my thoughts on the swatching process. One thing I noticed is that the neon and metallic paints took a lot more work to activate. I would need to add more water and also rub the paints a bit more. However, this is pretty common with most metallic and neon paints. If you plan to use them, I recommend spraying them with water and letting them soften up a bit before using them. That's what I did, and it made the metallics and neons much easier to use. For the rest of the paints, they activated very easily and worked very nice. They are very bright and colorful, and I really like the range of colors that you get. Also, they do not feel chalky and they have a nice feeling to them. So here are all of the colors after being swatched. I really like the metallic paints, they are very shiny. Oh, I also tried some of the metallic on the black paper and they look really cool. I've never really tried using watercolors on black paper. I wasn't expecting to receive so many things in that paint set. It comes with pretty much everything you need to get started with watercolor painting. However, we still have the second product to look at, and it is this 48 set of watercolor brush pens. These offer a watercolor effect, a flexible real nylon brush, and they are non-toxic. Inside the box we have all the markers and 2 water brush pens for blending. We get a pointed brush and a square brush. Here are what the pens look like. They have 2 tips, a brush tip and a fine tip. I really love when brush pens have a fine tip. Then I'm able to use them as a fine liner. It makes them very versatile. Also in the box we have a swatch chart and some more of the Magicfly watercolor paper. So once again I'm swatching the colors, but I won't make you watch the whole process. All of the colors are very bright and pigmented, and I feel like you get a very nice variety of colors. I do feel like Magicfly does a good job balancing how many of each color you get. Sometimes sets can be really bad about balancing colors. Like for example, you get a ton of different blues but only like 1 yellow. However, when it comes to these Magicfly sets, you get a very nice variety of colors that are very well balanced. One thing I do want to comment on is that for me, 2 of the markers were kind of dry, one of them being rose red. To help it be less dry, I dipped it into some water and that seemed to help some. I did the same thing for the other marker that was a bit dry. And here are all the colors now that they are swatched. Like I mentioned, they are very bright and colorful. Okay, so now that we have tested out the supplies, let's start coloring in. So I decided to start with the skin first. I thought it would be best to start with the skin because I'll be using a lot of dark colors. If I were to paint the dark areas first, they could possibly reactivate when I add the skin color, and they might end up mixing and making a mess. Because of this, I started with the skin first so I don't have to worry about that. When it comes to watercolors, if you don't want them to mix and mingle, you need to wait until they are dry, or paint areas that aren't right next to each other. So like I painted in the skin and then painted in the ears because they are kind of far away from each other and aren't touching. Once the skin dries, I can paint areas that are closer to it. Right now I'm kind of just filling in areas and getting flat colors into place. I was gonna start filling in the hair, however I thought I would add the shading to the skin first because once again I don't want the dark color of the hair to blend in with the skin. I used some of the skin color that I mixed and added more reds and purples to it to make it a bit darker. The paint set does have light apricot, which is a light skin tone type of color. However, I still chose to mix my own skin color because I wanted to make it look just how I want it. Mixing colors can be a lot of trial and error. I often need to do a lot of swatching and adding more colors, and it can be a process, especially if I can't seem to get the color just how I want it. For the skin tone, I kept having to go back and forth between yellow and red. It either kept being too yellow or too red. I also tried adding some pink in there to make it not so orangey. Also, sorry for how much my head sticks into frame. I really need to be better about not doing that. But some areas just need me to be more accurate and I don't want to mess up, so I get super close to the paper. Oh, also, there was a bit of an accident. My brush rolled out of my hand and for some reason it had magenta paint on it. I have no idea how that got onto it, but when the brush rolled on the paper, it made a bit of a mess. I tried to lift the paint, but it was kind of stuck on the paper, so I'll have to think of a way to incorporate the purple somehow. But I decided to think about that later and instead started to color the hair. So Ian's hair is black, but I wanted to make it be a little bit more colorful and fun since I'm using watercolors and I have so many colors to use. So I'm going to start by adding a wash of my skin tone and blue to his hair. I added the skin tone to areas around the face. I was hoping this would help lighten things up later on. I also decided to use a bluish undertone since he has ice powers, so I thought I could put some blue into the color scheme. I guess I'm kind of going with more of an anime black. You know how a lot of characters in anime that have dark black hair, it's often a really dark blue, so that's what I'm doing. I decided to do the same thing for his jacket hoodie thing. My sister said I could change his outfit if I wanted to because she didn't really know what to make him wear. But I thought the outfit she chose was nice, so I just had him keep his original outfit. So back to the hair. I added a bit of purple on the right side just to make it seem like it was a little bit more in shadow. And now I was going to try to darken things up and make things more black. However, I was being too chicken. I was scared to go in with the really dark color. So this resulted in the colors not getting very dark, even though that's what I was trying to do. So to help me darken up the hair, I switched to the watercolor brush pens. I'm going to use the color blue-gray where I want the darker parts to be. I then use a water brush pen to blend out the colors. I wasn't as scared to go in with a really dark color with the brush pens because they're easier to control and more predictable. Watercolors can sometimes do things that you don't expect, so they can be a little intimidating. Thankfully, this method of using brush pens and the water brush pen to blend it out worked really well. And I'm really happy with the end result. I feel like it looks pretty neat. I'm also glad I added the washes of color underneath. I think it makes the hair kind of fun and have a bit more color, which is what I was trying to do, but I wasn't sure if it would work. The hair took me a really long time to color, so I didn't film the whole thing, but here's what it looks like once I was finished. I decided to use the same method on the ears. I applied the dark color and blended it out with the water brush pen. Also, in case you're wondering what paper I am using Etcher hot pressed watercolor paper. Because the paper is hot pressed, it doesn't have much of a texture to it, so it's really nice for making a smooth surface. After the ears, I decided to fill in the eyes with their base colors. I plan to do more of a cell shaded shading style in the eye, so I wanted to get the base colors in place so that they have time to dry. I used a reddish orange brush pen for the left eye, and I mixed up a light blue paint for the right eye. I always really love using watercolor paint. It has this really distinct look to it that I find really pretty. Plus, it doesn't take very long to fill in large areas. These larger areas would take me a very long time to fill with something, say, like color pencil. One thing that is a bit hard sometimes with watercolor is that you kind of have to just let it do what it wants to do sometimes. Over the years, I have gotten better at controlling watercolor, but it still sometimes does things that I don't want or expect. This used to really bother me in the past, but you kind of just have to let it go and accept that the paint is going to do what it wants. Also, can I just say, I really love how the texture turned out on his jacket. It just looks so watercolory. I know it's watercolor, but it just really has that watercolor look to it and it pleases me. So now it's time to work on the eyes a little more. I am adding the darker colors to the top of them. A lot of times I make gradients in the eyes, but this time I thought I would try more of a harsh shadow with a hard edge. So I apply a dark blue and a dark red to the tops of the iris and use the same colors to fill in the pupils. I have more I want to do in the eyes, but I need to wait for the paint to dry. So while I wait, I fill in the background with some colors. I needed to hide the magenta paint accident that happened earlier, and to do that, I thought I could just add some blue colors that blend and make kind of a fun gradient in the background. It was a lot of fun applying these colors. I like when I'm able to be a little looser and kind of messy and just kind of let the colors do what they want. It's always fun mixing colors. So now that all of the colors are in place, I'm going to make the illustration look more complete by adding the line art. For the line art this time around, I'm using the fine tip of the brush pens. I really like the fine tips on these markers. They work very well for more detailed work or for doing line art. For his eyes, I thought it might be fun to have the blue eye have dark blue eyelashes and for the red eye to have dark red eyelashes, just to make them kind of pop and stand out. I've never done something like this, so I thought it might be kind of neat. I both really like and really dislike the line art adding stage. I like it because it brings the picture together and helps it feel more finished, but it also makes me really nervous because I don't want to mess up all of the work I did. Usually after a few minutes of doing line art, I start to get less nervous and start to loosen up a bit. I'm always the most nervous when working on the face. I actually decided to switch to a color pencil for the face because I was too nervous to use the brush pen. The color pencil is a bit easier for me to control and is a little more forgiving, so I used it for the facial features. I really enjoyed using these Magicfly products. They were a lot of fun to use and performed wonderfully. The watercolor paint set is only $24.99 on Amazon, which I think is a really nice deal for everything that you get. You get the palette, the paints, the brushes, the sponge, and the paper, so you have everything you need to get started. If you want to get into watercolor paints without needing to spend a lot of money, I think this set is a really nice option. I also really enjoyed using the brush pens. They were super helpful for adding details and for doing the line art. This 48 set is $28.99 on Amazon. If I were to rate these products, I'd give them 5 stars. I think they are a very nice entry point for artists that want to try a new medium. So here is the finished picture of my sister's character Ian. When my sister saw the picture, she said that he looked really cool and she was really happy to see him in a non-Gacha Club form. I was really happy to see that she was happy with it, and I'm really glad she likes how it turned out. Thanks for letting me draw him, Ruth. So that is all for this video, but before we end, I want to say a big thank you to my super wonderful patrons for supporting my work. It means so much to me. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!